mini episode.
Yep.
Dave Gerhardt just finished his Drive event.
Yes.
That was a big reverberation in the echo chamber that is LinkedIn marketing people.
It was like yesterday, I think, or the day before.
Yeah.
Just I'm starting to see the posts from them and from people that attended. Yeah.
Yeah, and what the understanding here, what I think we want the audience to take away is, hey, a couple of these just happened in like the spring event season. Now this just happened in the fall event season. We did one in the summer season. Every single one of them drive huge word of mouth on LinkedIn. It feels like if you're the last one to figure out that these are the things that are working, you're kind of missing out. What are your thoughts on that?
Host events, right? I mean, I think people and companies have done them for a long time. I think a lot of big time companies do a lot of like executive style stuff. They wine dine experiences, like big time stuff for their big, their big executive clientele. It's good to see more companies figuring out what a host event can do for you. One of my overarching thoughts on it is a lot of what I've seen though is you can't just get a hotel venue, bring people in with a cool register page, and then just put some speakers on stage for a day or so that is relevant to what these people want to hear.
Sure.
Like that's kind of like the old playbook that's the old playbook. It's like too many keynotes, a lunch, it's maybe a session here and there. And I think that's my big piece. Like host events are great to bring your customers and your biggest prospects together. You are the host, you are the conduit of it, but you have to know what it is that they want. You have to drive them value. It can't be like, oh yeah, it was decent this year. Oh yeah, that one speaker was good. Or, oh, I don't know. Like you have to set the event up differently and curate it content wise and experience wise. And then I think you got to nail the details. You got to be good event people. And a lot of these events I see online, I don't know. I'm not there. I don't know how good of eventers they are. Like, I don't know were the details nailed, right? Were, what was the experience like? Were there lulls? Were there odd times? There's a lot of cadence in events that you have to nail to make it really, really, really good.
Yep.
And that would be like my high level thought.
Let's just talk through 3 quick instances. First is EMC. There's a whole episode on that we did. But just at a high level, the things that people wanted, the things that were nailed. Go.
So things that people wanted and things that were nailed. So with our host event, we knew from talking to our customer what it is that they were seeking, right? They were wanting networking, like true networking and peer-to-peer interaction. Other high-level event marketers doing the job that they are doing. They wanted to talk strategy, tactics, ideas. I mean, really just like knowledge share, solve each other's problems, and have the ability to truly be in a room with other like-minded people doing that job. That was like the core thing of what they wanted. And then I also...
Real quick on that. That feels pretty universal. Like outside of maybe like a legal conference where people are competing, like that feels like at the essence of all of this stuff, we're seeing this across all of them. I think maybe there's a couple industries that doesn't apply for, but to me that you really should be thinking about that.
I think that's pretty universal.
Yeah.
I think the audience matters.
Yeah.
Like in terms of yes, I think it matters then what you do with them.
Correct.
Right? So that was one thing that we definitely knew that the audience wanted. I think we also knew that the audience wanted a more intimate setting. So smaller number of people versus like 300-400, right? Style. Or
even 200. Yeah, even 1 or 200. I don't think it would have worked as well.
That was an important aspect that we had heard over and over. And then the other piece that we heard over and over is a lot of the events that they go to, they are just pitched 24/7. And a lot of these events, they are just disingenuous bullshit pitch after bullshit pitch. Every session is like, I mean, how many session titles I've read at event industry for events and trade shows where I read the session, I'm like, damn, that sounds awesome. And then I go in and it's just a flat pitch with a person that can't pitch and a person that can't present. And it sucks and it's cold and it's dead and the room is just like, get me out of this place. I think they didn't want that. They wanted not to be pitched. They wanted to come in. So really it was about making the event all about them.
So those are things that were nailed at that event. I would say from what I'm seeing at the events that I have been at and these other events that I'm like seeing because I'm in that marketing world, people are really loving outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
Like I just went to that one in Montana. People have not
Great
stopped
weather,
talking
yeah.
about it. It was amazing. This Vermont in September.
Yeah.
That's the freaking move.
You got to have good weather.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm
100%.
seeing physical activities bringing people
Yep.
together, right? Like
Yeah.
they're doing like a 5K and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think you have to be careful with those things
Yeah.
in the timing and the way you stretch out the days of the events, because they add time slots. You know, when you're building an agenda, when you're building when people fly in, when they would fly out, evening dinners, timing of things. Like, I think you have to be cautious. You don't want to overdo that stuff. And I think you want to make it simple enough. But yes, I do think there is, depending on the audience,
depending on the audience. Other thing that I'm seeing at these ones that I've gone to that really work well, there really is, at least in my world, in my audience of like marketing and whatnot, people have made real friendships on LinkedIn and they haven't met.
Yes.
You
Seeing
know?
people in person is different.
There's a real benefit of getting at, is there a Facebook group in your industry? And how can you just make it so that the people from the Facebook group get to meet each other in person?
Yeah.
To me seems really valuable.
Yeah.
In marketing, it's LinkedIn. In other industries, it really is Facebook. I don't know where else that exists.
I think that thought is a huge like delineation and for the power of events. Like, like there's a ton you can do online nowadays. Yeah. Prospecting, marketing, groups, webinars, they're great. They're amazing. They speed things up, but there is a real power to being in person.
Yep.
And I think events have to harness that and kind of like, be a catalyst for commerce, you know, for pipeline based on that.
Last but not least, you had this like positive feedback of an attendee from EMC that essentially was like,
John.
dude, why don't you just talk about kind of like what you heard there and what you think is cool about that, and or like anything that the audience can take.
Yeah, so I got a cool message from one of the attendees that came to our host event. So I think like if you're hosting a host event, you have to have goals, you have to have things that you're trying to do. But then there's also like feel good stuff.
Yeah.
There's also things that just make you feel like there's times in your life when you do stuff that subjectively you just feel like it's the right thing, and you don't have like quantitative data behind it to show. And I think events have that.
Yeah.
This was one of those things. And it was an attendee messaged me, sent me 2 pictures and was like, hey, just want to let you know, like, really loved your event. And I was inspired by a lot of the way you all ran the event and what I learned. So I made some adjustments. They are doing like host events, but they're more like road shows. And so they had done some of them, and then they were continuing them on the back half of this year. And he's like, we made a bunch of adjustments based on what you all did and what I learned. And he's like, just want to say thanks. And it was a great time. And I wanted you to know. That's just like a really feel good thing. You know what I mean? That has good energy to it for whatever that's worth.
Do you know what
cool.
the adjustments were? Like, is
I
there?
don't. I actually,
okay.
You'll love this because it would be what you would say. But I wrote him back and I said, hey, let's do a podcast episode.
Yes.
I said, I knew you were
yes.
I said, let's talk about it. He said, sure.
Cool.
He said there's a lot to it with stakeholders and making changes and things like that. So yeah, he'll do it. And I think that, again, feel good thing. When people can come to your event and they can take things that are actionable, it's different. And then when they're attached enough to you to report it back to you, like, hey, I wanted you to know, that's meaningful. Yeah. That's a meaningful interaction. That's like meaningful engagement, which I think is what everybody is seeking.
Do you think these smaller events, is the 1 hour keynote dead for these events? Like, does it even matter?
I think these small host events, like anything else in sales and marketing, sales and marketers will kick the living shit out of it until they're no longer good anymore, right? Like, that's what sales and marketing does. So I think if I was telling anybody that are going to start doing this, do it right. Don't just gung-ho throw yourself into it. Like, I think the keynote thing depends, to answer your question. I think it depends on your audience. I think it depends on the depth of information you're trying to give them. For example, our audience, they didn't need big keynote speeches. They wanted moderated, well, we guessed on this, but we thought from moderated, orchestrated conversation. And depth of conversation. So we needed really good moderators, right? Which is why I brought Jerry in. If you need a moderator, call Jerry McNamara. No, so you know what I mean? So like, that's why we did that. So to answer the question, keynote, I don't know, but also I would just, if you're going to do a host event, don't just throw a host event because we're saying to, or because other people are doing it and you're seeing them everywhere, because people are burning money doing it. You have to do it the right way. You got to know what your customer wants. You have to know who that customer is, and you have to deliver the event, make it all about them. You have to deliver what they want, because if they show up and they don't get what they want, not that they're going to piss and moan about it, but essentially they're going to leave like, yeah, it was okay. Because I've been to events where I go, I don't get anywhere near close to what I want.
Yeah, it almost feels like you're really betting hard on relationship the more intimate it becomes. And therefore,
Yes.
when you're there, your mentality that you're saying is like, don't pitch slap them, don't whatever, go hard at relationship. But the other side of it is, if you do the intimate thing wrong, it's going to be way worse for the relationship.
Just think about it. Say you're, whatever industry, doesn't matter. Say you're my ICP, you're my ideal customer. And one of your big struggles, right, is being able to implement softwares at your larger organization, right? Maybe I'm a software company that I would sell to you or whatever. So I bring you into this event. Well, I better be able to drive value to you so that when you leave that event, you feel better about implementing software.
Yeah.
So whether that's experts, whether that's hosting, I mean, God, that like whether that's bringing in people to do implementation and having them sit down in small rooms with groups of 3 or 4 and running implementation demos and showing, troubleshooting, like get to the point of what somebody wants and give it to them. Just selflessly give it to them.
Yep.
Because if you are the one that does that and you show interest in giving that to them, then I think they will show interest back in you. And I think it opens up, it takes down that wall to build the relationship.
Sales and marketers will beat this thing to death. Right now, there's the opportunity to do this right. This was just a mini episode as a PSA.